I'm lucky enough to own both a Yamaha Tenere 700 and a Honda Transalp 750. And now that I've hit 1,000 miles on the Transalp, I think it's probably time to answer the question that I've been asked approximately 11,291 times since I bought this bike. Which motorcycle is better, the Transalp or the Tenere? The answer, like always, is complicated. It's worth mentioning that my Transalp is a 2024, obviously, because it's the only one we can get here in the States, and my Tenere is a 2022, so we'll mostly be talking about the differences between those two models. I know they made some updates to the Tenere. For all intents and purposes, it's essentially the same in terms of the riding experience and the things we're going to talk about today. So if you're here, I'm guessing you already know a little bit of basic information about these two bikes, but it's worth starting out just covering the things they do the same or that are similar so that we can focus on the differences, which is where the real nuances lie. Both of these bikes MSRP for just right at $10,000 or just over $10,000. Similar wet weight, 452 pounds for the Tenere, 459 pounds for the Transalp. They're both Japanese, they're both dead reliable, they both have a 21-inch front wheel and an 18-inch rear wheel. They're both 6-speed fuel-injected parallel twins. Both have very long oil change service intervals, 6,000 for one and 8,000 for the others, given the average amount of miles most riders cover in a year. That's essentially yearly. They're both adventure style bikes. They're both tall, they're both designed to go on and off road. All of those things are very similar, which is why the question comes up so often, which bike is better or which bike should I buy? So let's talk about what is different between the two of them. There are some subtle but significant differences. Transalp has 8.3 inches of ground clearance. Much has been made about that. The Tenere has 9.3 inches of ground clearance, so a full extra inch. The Transalp has a 33.7-inch seat height. The Tenere has a 34.4-inch seat height. That's not a huge difference on paper, but I can tell you in practice, the Tenere feels much taller than the Transalp. Transalp has a 4.5-gallon tank and a 755cc motor. The Tenere is a 4.2-gallon tank and a 689cc motor. The Transalp has 83 horsepower. The Tenere has 72 horsepower. Transalp front suspension travels 7.9 inches, rear suspension travels 7.5 inches. Tenere is 8.3 inches in the front and 7.9 inches in the rear. That is literally a half-inch difference. Keep that in mind. The Transalp suspension is preload adjustable only, front and rear. The Tenere is fully adjustable up front and preload and damping adjustable in the rear. The Transalp has a quick shifter. The Tenere doesn't. The Transalp has self-canceling turn signals. The Tenere has rider-canceling turn signals. Transalp has several rider modes. The Tenere has quote-unquote off-road mode, and all that does is turn off ABS to the front wheel. Again, that's the 2022. The Transalp has a TFT display, 5 inches, and app connectivity, though it's technically not supported in the US, but you can make it work. The Tenere does not have a TFT display, at least not my 2022. I know that the 2024 does. And probably the biggest difference that is consistently pointed out between these two bikes is that the Tenere comes with a stock skid plate, the Transalp does not. So that's all well and good, but stats on paper never tell the whole story, particularly when it comes to motorcycles. And I think what people are most interested in is the experience of owning and riding both of these bikes and how they compare to each other. So let's talk about that. First, what does the Transalp do better? Well, to answer that question, let's start with what it's supposed to do. This is directly from Honda's design document about the Transalp. Their goal was to create a bike that provided all-round, magnificent scale, long-touring performance in comfort, from city to motorway, from mountain passes to unpaved roads. I have never heard anyone describe the Tenere as comfortable. The Transalp definitely is. The stock seat is 100 times better than the Tenere on the Transalp. When I brought my Tenere home, I was sore from riding on the seat after 20 minutes. It was a 20-minute ride from the dealership, and I was ready to be done with the stock seat after that. It is just thin and narrow, and again, a theme we're going to come back to is the Transalp is about form and comfort, and the Tenere is all about functionality. Transalp is much better on the street, unequivocally. It feels like a street bike on the street. It has street bike electronics and street bike gearing. It has 5 rider modes, 3 of which are street-oriented. One is completely useless, that's the gravel mode, and the other is the user mode, which most of us will set up to be our dirt mode and just turn everything off. That's what I've done. Much better wind protection on the Transalp, although I wish it was a little taller. The Transalp is better set up for touring because it was designed to be. It says so in the design document. It's more modern and feature-rich across the board. It's all around easier to ride, handle, and move around the garage. The lower seat height and center of gravity make it easier to maneuver and deal with uneven terrain. So with the Transalp, you have more ease and comfort at the expense of some capability. When I ride the Tenere, seat height is never far from my mind. I'm always looking for a rut to go into or a log or rock to put my foot on when I stop. I literally felt it when I came out of the garage just now, worried about getting my feet down with a 30-inch inseam. Yes, the difference is only 3/4 of an inch on paper, but the Transalp is definitely easier to get your feet down. Whether it's the design of the engine or the seat or whatever, or the suspension's just squishier, it is much easier to get your feet down on the Transalp. It does not feel like the seat height is as high as it is. So if the seat height is turning you off from the Transalp, go sit on one. You're gonna find it doesn't feel like that. It feels more like a 32-inch seat height. Now, as Honda said, it is designed for touring and comfort, but that does not mean it's not also capable off-road. Notice it said all-around performance and unpaved mountain roads, so they did intend for it to leave the pavement occasionally. It's pretty capable, in my opinion, for what I believe 90% of riders will ever do on their ADV bikes. I've taken it on ATV trails, single track, and up in the snow. I've blasted up fire roads at 60 miles per hour and done slow speed crawls through single track. I've taken it moto camping and ridden it on parts of the Oregon BDR, and I will most likely be riding it when I do the Northern California BDR this summer. I honestly believe the Transalp will do 90% of what the Tenere will do off-road, just not as fast or as easily. Now, the Tenere does many things better than the Transalp, as you could probably guess from the stats. But first, let's talk about what it was designed to do. This is from the Yamaha document explaining their thought process behind the Tenere when they first put it together. The Tenere was focused on total controllability and riding confidence with lightweight, excellent rider ergonomics, and the best controllable engine character. In addition, we aim to achieve simple, functional, and beautiful styling fitting to any possible riding scene, including off-road, city riding, etc. Notice they specifically said off-road. The Transalp just says unpaved roads. And yes, I have argued in the past that those two are functionally the same thing, and colloquially they are. But in this case, it speaks to the design philosophy behind the bike and different intentions for the motorcycles. Off-road in the motorcycle design parlance is different than unpaved roads. In this case, I think that distinction is significant and not just semantical. The focus for the Tenere was simple and functional for any possible riding scene. The Tenere is definitely simpler with more focus on function over form and comfort. It's better equipped for off-road because it has stiffer off-road suspension with more adjustability, more ground clearance and suspension travel, but it's only 1 inch more clearance and a 1/2 inch more suspension travel. So the Transalp is not set up to go off-road because it has terrible clearance and travel is maybe a little overblown when it's so close to a bike that nobody is arguing can't go off-road. Tenere has that anti-squat technology, where the swing arm is angled such that it drives the rear wheel into the ground, which in turn pushes the front wheel down and gives you maximum traction when you're accelerating, even in the loosest terrain. The Transalp is not designed like that. This is what I'm talking about when I say the Tenere was designed with function in mind, and one of those functions is being really capable off-road. The Tenere has much lower gearing. It's super luggable. I have been in the way wrong gear multiple times on steep technical stuff and been able to just lug it right up the hill. The Transalp will do that stuff, but you got to be careful and make sure you're in the right gear a little bit more. Tenere has a narrower overall profile, more dirt bike-like. It's technically better equipped for off-road from the factory with the skid plate, but let's be honest, I would ditch it as soon as possible because it's not good, and I would add hand guards and crash bars, or at least engine guards, just like I did with this bike. So yes, technically I'm more apt to just hit a gravel road or some more technical terrain right off the bat with the Tenere, but I'm still going to be worried about dropping it on the engine case on a rock until I get some engine protection. The Tenere has frame rails running underneath the engine for more secure skid plate mounting. This rally-style tower, the styling of it screams off-road. It's like it was designed to send the message, a clear message that I can go off-road, I will take you anywhere you want to go, and you can see that because it looks like a rally bike. The Transalp, however, looks like an NC750X, which is not even like a fast motorcycle. It's like the most efficient, most practical motorcycle of all time. Comfort, practicality, long distance touring, that's what this front end screams to me. Over here, looks like a rally bike. It's like, take me off road, man. So the styling difference betrays some of the intent with the design, I feel like. Some maintenance tasks on the Tenere are easier, in particular the air filter, it's right under the seat. The Tenere actually comes with a 12-volt port and a mounting rail for a GPS, almost like they expect you to take it off-road and use it as an adventure bike. The CP2 engine here in the Tenere is statistically one of the most reliable motorcycle engines ever created. The Hornet engine here is newer, so it's less tested, but it's a Honda, so I'm not really worried about it, and I don't think that's a major concern, but just, you know, we're talking about differences. That is one. The platform here on the Tenere is more established. The Tenere is not built for comfort. Comfort is not a secondary concern. I'm not even sure it's a tertiary concern. This thing's built for functionality and capability, and it is obvious from the experience when you ride it. It's not the most comfortable bike on the highway. It's doable. I took it all the way to northern Vancouver Island and back, and would not hesitate to do it on this bike again, but given a choice, I would definitely take the Transalp. It's just more comfortable. That's all well and good, but total package across the board, which bike is better? That's the question we're trying to answer here. Hard to answer, but I've come up with a few ways of sort of explaining the differences to hopefully make it easier for you to visualize and make your own choice. For you visual types, check out this continuum. Both of these bikes straddle the line between dirt and street. The Tenere is better on the dirt, but still has street capability. The Transalp is better on the street, but still has dirt capability. The Transalp line is longer because the gap between the street capability of the two bikes is wider than the gap between the dirt functionality. The Tenere is better on the dirt, but not as much better as the Transalp is on the street. I hope that makes sense. Overall, if I had to rate the two of them, they're incredibly close, but technically I would say the Transalp offers more, depending on what you want to do, but it also depends on if you want the thing that it offers more of. It's very close, but the Transalp is quote-unquote better overall. It's got a wider range of capability and far superior street performance. It's also easier to ride and more comfortable. The off-road difference is there, but it's not vast like people make it out to be. We're talking 1 inch of ground clearance and ½ inch of suspension travel, and the Tenere has the advantage of suspension adjustability and anti-squat. The Tenere is much better for a specific purpose, namely harder off-road riding with some touring and street riding to get there. If you want max performance when you leave the pavement and you're willing to give up ease of riding and comfort to get it, this Tenere is the bike for you. Let me put it another way. The Transalp is a folding pocket knife. It's good at a lot of things and useful when you go out in the woods, but it's not the best tool for when you're in the woods trying to make a fire or whatever. The Tenere is a machete. Much better in the woods, chopping wood or batoning firewood, but not the easiest or best choice for when you're trying to help your kids open their Christmas presents. So what's the bottom line from a guy that owns both bikes? Well, like all things, it depends on your personal preferences, but if you need a hard and fast rule, here it is. If you're gonna spend 51% of your time or more on the road of your riding time, the Transalp is definitely the bike I would point you towards first. If you're gonna spend more than 51% of your time off the road, off the pavement I should say, then the Tenere is probably the better choice for you. But they're so close in terms of functionality, I do think they can go almost all the same places. It's such a subtle, nuanced difference that really you could walk into a dealership and either just buy the one you can get the best deal on, or just buy the one that looks the coolest, or that you like the most, or that feels right when you sit on it and ride it. Either way, I'm convinced after a month of riding it, you'll be sure it's the better of the two. So what do you think? Which bike is better? Is there that big of a difference? Am I way off? Have you ridden both? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more adventure bike riding, dual sport riding, adventure bike and dual sport reviews, more moto camping stuff, tips, tricks, and advice, please consider subscribing to the channel because I'm the dork in the road and I want to be your internet riding buddy, and I'm better than your regular riding buddies because I come with the mute button. Thank you for watching, and please do not forget to be excellent to each other. A thank you. What is this? Who does this? A thank you. I'm Shooter McGavin over here. Thank you. Cringe. You're such a dad. Such a dad.
Excellent!